Hello students, welcome to physics. Students, in this video we will be discussing about the laws of reflection of light. Okay, now what do we understand by reflection, students? We have discussed in the previous video that reflection means the bouncing back of anything. Okay, the bouncing back of anything. Now in this video we are discussing about light, therefore we will be discussing about reflection of light, and that the definition becomes over here, that is the bouncing back of light is called reflection. Bouncing back of light is called reflection. Now students, when we talk about the laws, what happens? Now let's see, suppose we have a plane surface, okay, and this is the polished part. Let us consider this is the polished part, polished surface, and let us consider this is the part on which the reflecting will happen, or on which the light is about to incident. So this is the reflecting surface. Okay, let us consider this is the reflecting surface. Clear? Now students, when the light ray incidents on any object, okay, now when the light ray incidents falls on any object, the falling light rays are called the incident rays. Okay, we call it as incident rays, and after getting or striking into the surface, it gets reflected, that is, it bounces back on the same medium, and this is what we call as reflected ray. Okay, we call it as reflected ray. And the point on which the light ray, incidenting light ray, is striking the surface, we draw a normal to the plane, and normal line, and perpendicular line, that is, we call it as normal. Okay, so we have three things, that is the incident ray, the normal, and the reflected ray. Okay, now how the laws are created, we can see over here that the incident ray, okay, this one, the incident ray, the normal, this one, and the reflected ray, this one, all lies on the same plane. So here the first law becomes that the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal all lie in the same plane. So we have got the first law over here, the law of reflection, the first law, that says the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal all lie in the same plane. Now what will be the second law? I am creating the same figure over here, students. Let us consider the same figure. This is the incident ray, this is the reflected ray, and this is the normal. Students, the angle formed between the incident ray and the normal is called the angle of incidence, and the angle formed between the reflected ray and the normal is called the angle of reflection. So angle I is equals to angle of incidence, angle of incidence, and angle R is equals to the angle of reflection, angle of reflection. Now what happens, student? The second law says that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. Angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. So how will we write it? We are supposed to write it as the angle of the second law. This is the second law, and it can be written as the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. Okay, done with the second law as well. So we have it, the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. Okay students, now one more overview for the video. Now the first law says that the angle of the first law says over here that the incident ray, the normal, and the reflected ray all will lie on the same plane. Okay, all will lie on the same plane. And the second law says, now we have the same figure for the second law, the angle formed between the incident ray and the normal is known as the angle of incidence, and the angle formed between the reflected ray and the normal is called the angle of reflection. And the second law says that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. Whether the surface is plain surface or a rough surface, it does not matter. The only thing that will happen, that is the laws of reflection that will happen, is true for all the conditions, whether the surface is a plain surface, whether the surface is a rough one, whether we are under the ocean, whether we are on the space. Nothing matters. The only thing we can understand is the laws of physics are always applicable in all these fields. Okay, now let's see few questions related to this. Now let us suppose, students, the question says the angle formed between the surface on which the light is incidenting and the incident light ray is equals to 30 degree. So what is the reflected angle? Angle of reflection. Okay, now students, we can draw a normal to the plane. Okay, we are drawing it. We have drawn a normal. It means this overall angle is equals to 90 degree, and in 90 degree this 30 degree is the angle between the angle of, reflect incident ray and the surface of the plane. Okay, so it is 30 degree, therefore this angle becomes 60 degree. Now we got to know that angle of incidence is equals to 60 degree, and according to the second law of reflection, we know that angle of incidence is equals to angle of reflection. Therefore if angle of incidence is equals to, since angle of incidence is equals to 60 degree, therefore angle of reflection will also be equal to 60 degree. So this is how we used to solve the questions. So I don't think this is a huge or big topic. So this is one of the simple topics that we can study in physics. So I hope you understand the video, understood the topic very well. Thank you very much for watching the video.